everyone. Welcome to session 3, titled A Candid Conversation, The Future of Work. I am Riley McLean, your moderator for today, and I am here with Miss Latito Hutchinson, Derek Warren, and Brandon Logan. How are you guys? Okay. All right. So to begin with the first question, how do you envision the role of technology evolving in the workplace over the next decade, and what impact will that have on employment opportunities? We can start with you, Ms. Latito Hutchinson.
Okay. Well, I envision the role of technology changing with the use of large language models like ChatGPT. I think it's really going to transform the way that we do business. I don't believe that there will be less jobs. I think there will just be different kinds of jobs in the future, and we'll just need to adapt. But I always say that as long as you have humans, right? As long as you have humans, babies will be born and people will pass away, and you will need health care, and you will need environmental sciences to take care of this earth, and medicines and buildings and homes. And so we will have jobs. They will just change, and we'll need to find ways to leverage the technology to do things better and more efficiently.
Mr. Logan?
Well, in my humble opinion, switch mics. Sorry.
I can take that.
Well, one of my sayings is there is no business without technology and no technology without business. I firmly believe that. I normally would say that, and I say this with VP Logan all the time, there is no business without technology and no technology without business. Going to see these technologies become commonplace and part of our everyday life and living. VP Logan?
So I'm trying to figure out how to add value to what they've already said, because I think they set the tone correctly. What I'd say probably to the students is understanding the adaptability of skill sets, right? One of the things that we do here Leading Advancement Innovation is to ensure that as students you have a chance to understand your strengths. And I think when you go into a workplace, you want to come in there confidently knowing what you can contribute. And when you recognize that there are adaptations to the model like emergence of technology, there's no different than every other generation, right? It's about the art of the pivot, understanding how you can contribute. But there are hard skills that you will have to continue to learn and be comfortable with doing so. And as they set the tone about what the industry will look like and the requirements, just know the human capital, I think, is still always going to be imperative to the workplace and its advancements for success.
If no one else has anything to add, we can move on to the next question. In what ways can organizations foster a culture of adaptability and resilience among their employees as the nature of work continues to change? Whoever wants to answer first.
Well, I'll start on that question. It is important as Gram Fam, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and beyond that we are keenly focused on continuous learning. Learning is the skill set that all of us must embrace because we must become more adaptive. In fact, when people ask me what's probably one of the best skills that a person can continue to work on, I say it's the ability to learn. Because when you learn, you will grow. Learning, in my humble opinion, equals growth. And that's something that we must continue to embrace and pursue.
So I was talking about strengths, and Clifton Strength is an assessment that's available to every student. and my number one strength is learning. And it's interesting that Dean Warren went ahead of me, because if you ever have an email from his signature line says learning equals growth. And this idea of investing in your own personal learning and professional learning is so important for you all to grasp now, because the world is changing so fast. And I dated myself on Monday when I talked about when I was in school, Facebook was founded. And I know that this generation doesn't engage in Facebook like I do, but that company has now went on to purchase Instagram and other platforms that are commonly used. But the iteration of Facebook today is certainly not the iteration of Facebook from 2006. And so this idea of continuing to learn and be subject matter experts is so important for you all. And the way we're designing your learning environment now is creating this idea of continuous learning. So embrace that. Make sure that you see that there's real alignment from what's being applied here into industry. And Latito here with Chase can be evidence of that, is what they're looking for students like you all in their workplace.
Yes. And so I will add to that, going back to the question, how can organizations foster that culture of adaptability and resilience? I believe it's all about encouraging curiosity amongst our employees and encouraging early adoption. Right? We want you all to be early adopters of technology and artificial intelligence and whatever other new thing is out there. You all were born with the tablets and the computers and the internet. We were not. And so you will be able to adapt to all of these things and transform our world far faster than we can. So when organizations lean in to all of its staff, all generations of its staff, we're all better for it. And so just hiring more of you and leaning on your skills and your strengths is how we can grow and we can become more adaptive and more resilient.
And if I may add one additional point, just to support what Latito and VP Logan said, research from Deloitte says that 92% of companies and organizations that adopt or have strong learning cultures, those organizations are more likely to innovate. 92%. So that's why Grambling must adopt a learning culture. It must become embedded in everything that we do and how we behave.
Ms. Hutchinson, you kind of touched on this when you were just speaking, so you can feel free to answer first if you would like. The question is, what skills do you believe will be the most critical for workers in the future, and how can education systems better prepare individuals for these demands?
So my background is from retail. I work in operations right now, in home lending operations, but I come from retail branch banking. In all aspects, though, of business, whether it was the retail branch, whether it's operations, in everything that we do at JP Morgan Chase, it's about putting the customer first, putting the customer at the center of everything that we do. But I would dare say that's not just JP Morgan Chase. That is every successful company in the world knows to put the customer first. So I don't just mean customer service like answering a phone call and being courteous and professional and polite. I mean, when you are creating new technology, you're saying, how is my customer going to perceive this? What is my user experience going to look like? In everything that you do, customer service, being able to put the customer first is a skill set that you need to have, and it will take you far, and it will grow the company. Your customer at the end of the day is the only reason why you exist. And so it doesn't matter what line of business you're in. If you're in environmental sciences and you're creating a new medicine, you're thinking about the end user, the customer, that whole time. And if you do that, it always humanizes the work that you do. It helps you to have value in what you do and makes you a better employee. So I think that skill set, customer service, is something that will never go away. Because, like I say, as long as you have humans, you will service other humans.
And I want to touch on the attitude of excellence. I think when you consider achieving the highest level, it starts with your mindset, the belief that you can accomplish something, but also making sure that you understand what is the highest level achievement with whatever you're working on. So the attitude will then translate into behavior, and the behavior will then shape the outcomes. I can assure you of one thing: when you have downsizing that's happening, any type of shifts in the marketplace, those individuals that have the attitude and actions of excellence, they will always be employed. And if you all can adapt that as a characteristic trait of everything that I do has some level of performance and evaluation applied to it, people will remember you for your reputation of excellence. And so that's the one thing I really want to impart on you all, is adopting this idea of having this attitude of excellence that then translates into behavior of excellence and then outcomes of excellence, because you will then establish a reputation of excellence for everything you do, regardless if it is leading an organization here on campus or leading a 500 employee base within a large scale division. If you carry excellence with you in everything you do and hold that to that standard, I guarantee you will always be employed, you will always be in demand in whatever you do.
Those are powerful answers. And I want to pose a question to our audience. And the question is, are you future ready? Are you future ready? So Communications Director Tisha Arnold and I, along with VP Logan, recently went through an exercise around branding and thinking about how do we brand Grambling, how do we brand specifically Grambling's College of Business, and we came up with a tagline that said, the future of entrepreneurship. Well, when I think about key skills, I have to think about skills that are future ready, that regardless of what happens in the environment, that happens within the government, who becomes elected, who becomes president, who becomes vice president, who's Speaker of the House, we have got to be future ready. And there are 3 specific skills that I think will help us to always be future ready. Those skills are cognitive skills, cognitive flexibility and critical thinking. A second is digital and data literacy. We have to understand data is one of the world's greatest natural resources, or the new natural resource. But we need individuals who understand how to gain insights from that data, how to problem solve. That's a key skill that all of our students need to, of course, have. And a third skill, which is sometimes underestimated, is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. We've got to be able to get along with each other, to understand how different people work. We've got to be in touch with our mental cognitive ability, because mental health is a key challenge in today's society on our college campus specifically. So having those 3 skills, cognitive flexibility and critical thinking, 2, digital and data literacy, and 3, emotional intelligence, EQ, as we like to call it, are critical skills to help our students, faculty, staff, and GramFam become future ready.
So with this mindset of future ready, I pose this question. How might the rise of remote work influence team dynamics and collaboration, and what strategies can leaders implement to maintain a cohesive work environment?
So I can answer that question. I want to go back to the last question for just a moment to add a couple of more skills based on what we just talked about. I would add strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is huge, and there aren't as many strategic thinkers a lot of times in the workforce than what we need. It's that ability to cast your vision forward in your department, for your firm, and we need much more of that as we think about where the future of work goes and how we're going to leverage technology. Somebody needs to be thinking holistically and really helping the firm to develop a strategy around that. The other thing that I would say is project management. And a lot of time project management the job description, the title on the job doesn't say project management, but when you dig into it, that's what it is. Project management is just being able to wrap your arms around a concept, an idea, a project, a program, and help drive it to the end, right? And so it could be project management in technology, it can be engineering. Project management applies to any field you can think of, but being able to have people in the workplace that can wrap around an idea and make sure you get to the end of it is huge. in regards to your question about the rise of remote technology, I would say it's not rising anymore for a lot of us. We're all going back into the office. You know, whether you feel like it's unfortunately or fortunately, many of us are going back into the office so that we can collaborate more. But I will say one of the things that I found to work very well was either be like, don't half step it, either be all in or all out. And what I mean by that, things that did not work as well were hybrid environments where you have some people, let's say you're having a meeting, some people are in the room, others are on the Zoom call. That was not as good of an employee experience as opposed to everybody. If we're going to be remote, then let's all be on the Zoom call. We all have the same experience. We can all see the same, hear the same, contribute the same. And so with that type of remote work environment, you just really have to lean into your technology and what you use to make sure that it's a good employee experience. You still have engagement on those calls. You use your breakout rooms. You just really have to be intentional about how you have a good employee experience and not lose the fact that you're humans and you still need to connect, even though you don't get to physically touch or see those people anymore.
Yeah, great thoughts. I think one of the things to add, when COVID hit, it displaced a lot of things. It disrupted, workplace environments, and a lot of people had to adapt to a new reality. And I think what we learned a lot is that you can still perform well outside of the workplace. Now, depending upon industry, you are seeing some people shift back into permanent workspace. But what I'd say is it's like taking an in-class versus an online coursework. What is really going to be the driver to your success in either environment is to be disciplined. Because there's 4 attributes that I believe enable the success or failure of a business. Number 1 is culture. Number 2 is leadership. Number 3 is alignment, and number 4 is teamwork. And so whether you are in a virtual environment or in person, you do have more vibrancy in person, but at the end of the day, everything has to be objective driven. And so if you're gathering with the purposes of advancing some objective or some task, and you have the right leadership, you've established the right culture, you're aligned to each responsibility, you're going to get the results as desired. But it is important to understand that there are new shifts and I think permanent placement in remote work. And if you have that type of discipline and that skill set to stay within there, me personally, I wasn't interested in just staying at home. I really thrive amongst my peers and talking with people. But there are some people that may be introverted and say my preference is to work in that space. But I do think we live in a reality where permanent work from home, remote work is going to be available, but you have to figure out what is best for you, your work style and your work preference. But at the end of the day, those 4 attributes will remain true in any environment: culture, leadership, alignment, and teamwork.
I agree with my colleagues in so many ways. I think that the world will continue to have shifts. We're coming back into work now. We may be pushed out due to a new pandemic next week. I believe as an organization, we must adopt a digital-first mentality. I'm a computer scientist by degree. I love technology. I love being a first adopter. Everyone does not. But I will tell you, learning to embrace and get out of your comfort zone around technology will give you a competitive advantage when it comes to work. Again, all of us have this little cell phone in our hands, right? It may not be an Apple, but it's an Android. It may be another. All of us have it. Learn how to use it. We have this before we have a computer or a laptop or an iPad. So adopting a digital-first mindset, digital-first, being okay with at least trying things that you may not necessarily be comfortable with initially will give you such insight, such awareness. it'll also help you become more adaptable and flexible regardless of what life may throw at you in the future.
Any additional thoughts? Okay. Moving right along to the next question. As automation and artificial intelligence becomes more prevalent, how should companies approach workforce planning to balance efficiency with the need for human insight and creativity?
So I would say when it comes to balancing workforce, there is no new thing. There's always supply and demand, and an organization is always attempting to fill the gap. They identify the need that they have in their workforce. As we have technology, those needs will change, right? I don't need you to process the widgets as much because I can use a large language model to do that, but I need you to tell it what to do. And so the work will change, but they'll all just be trying to figure out whatever their need is and fill the gap, and that part won't really change. But this makes me think of the movie Hidden Figures, if anyone has ever watched that movie. And in that movie, technology changed. You had people who were computing, literally with their calculators, and they were the computers. They computed daily. They were very good at math, and they could do it by hand. And then I don't know what the I stands, the IBM, the business machine came online. And one person was the early adopter and figured out how to use the technology. And once she did that, she taught all of her team and took them with her. So they kept their jobs, right? Because they figured out how to leverage the technology of the day, and their roles just changed. They still needed to know the math. They still needed to know how to compute, because that machine, something might go wrong. So the knowledge, I think sometimes with technology, we think, well, I don't want to use ChatGPT. I've literally heard this quote. Someone says, it makes me feel less smart. If I use the technology, then if it's writing my paper, then one day we won't know how to write. I said, no, you still need to know how to write. You still need to know your grammar rules and all those things. And you still need to be, after it gives you a base model, you still need to be going back and proofreading and checking and rewriting it. But it will help you to do it faster and more efficiently. So it's things like that. The jobs will still be there. We'll just use the technology more efficiently.
And if I may add to that, you're absolutely right. A lot of people view AI as the enemy, but it's really not AI versus humans. It's AI plus humans. We've got to reduce our automation anxiety and transition to what I call automation acceptance. Embrace it. I use ChatGPT as a help or benefit, just like I use Google. And I don't know why, for some reason, we were all okay with using Google to do searches, but now asking ChatGPT to help me improve a paragraph becomes an issue. Now, granted, I agree with you. We must not lose our skill set in writing and communicating and problem solving. Those will always be important. But we use those skills so that we can better the world, better the marketplace. We need to be involved in AI also because of ethics. When our voices are not included in that conversation, we end up setting ourselves up for more discrimination. All of us know how we use the hands-free devices, correct? Sometimes, no matter how you wave your hand in front of that faucet, it will not come on. That's because it hasn't been trained to recognize maybe your skin color, your complexion. So we need to, that's why our voices, our input must be part of these technologies, must be part of those solutions.
Okay. Okay, so for our last question, so we discussed AI and automation, but more so on a human level, what role do you think employee well-being and mental health will play in shaping the future of work, and how can organizations prioritize these aspects in their policies?
So I'll kick this one off. I think when we talk about the attributes, culture, right? You want, and I contend with this idea of work-life balance. I really believe it's work-life integration and making sure that what you're doing is something that you love to do and you don't feel like it's truly a job and you're just clocking in and clocking out. But I also believe that it's important to make sure that you have space for yourself and space for other things. Work should not consume your whole life. Work should be a part of your life, but you should be consumed by other things that you enjoy. Oftentimes, growing up, as a young boy seeking to become a man, it was known to not say anything, to be tough. You work these things out, and you kind of suffer in silence. What I love about this younger generation is that they're bringing these larger conversations to the forefront, and it's forcing older people like myself, never thought I'd say that at a panel, but older people like myself to be more aware and conscientious of things that they're struggling with. And so, like on our campus, Grambling State University, we have an area that is specifically designed for individuals to express or convey how they're feeling in times where they need counseling or support. It is important to take that same level of understanding and care into the workplace as well. Some of my team members will attest to it. When I see that they are overworked or overwhelmed, I'll ask them to work from home, to be in a more relaxed environment that perhaps doesn't require them to be in such the rigor or the demands of the day. Or I will send them home early. And so it falls on leadership to be aware of the type of environment that you have to create for everyone's collective success, but also individual success. So being more aware of, and again, I go back to the strengths, understanding the strengths in the areas of that individual and how they can plug in and when they need to check out to ensure that their health and well-being is being prioritized within the workplace. And that's something I work on every single day to get better at because, again, it all falls with retention. Right? You want to ensure that you are advancing their lives, not detracting from their lives, because that ultimately becomes a mark on your ability to, care for one another, is if you are truly understanding the holistic approach of that individual and not just what they can contribute to advancing some idea and producing better outcomes.
And VP Logan and Latoya, I will add, a number of companies now, at one point, businesses viewed mental health services as a perk. Well, now businesses are viewing it as a priority. It's a business mandate. My daughter, who works for a PR firm in New York City, has Fridays off. They give them Fridays off to focus specifically on mental health. I'm actually thinking in the College of Business maybe adopting a Mental Health Monday mindset where we create opportunities for students to, or experiences for students to do things that support mental health or mental health awareness or something of that nature. I think it's just so important for us to look at self-care so that we can provide better services and support to each other and to the students and clients in which we serve.
So I would definitely agree with Dr. Warren and VP Logan. And I would take it a step further. Right now, it's a priority for companies, but it's becoming a necessity because the fact of the matter is the future of work is all of you. It's the students. It's the next generation. And unlike former generations, you all require it. And therefore, the employers will have to get with the program eventually. Now, there will have to be a meeting of the minds, of course, but with different generations, you all value well-being, mental health, I believe, more than any of the other generations. You will leave a job if the benefits, if the environment is not like you want it. And that's not how it used to be. We would stick and stay and just deal with it, and you all won't. And so that is why well-being and mental health will be huge in the workplace because we have a different generation and they require it. So the rest of us will just need to get with the program.
And you bring up really good points. It kind of reminds me of, my grandmother to my parents' generation. You had the silent generation, you had the baby boomers, that there was real scarcity in the marketplace. And so it was a point of pride once you got that job. It was about sticking there and working your way up, and you had a 40-plus year career. Now, if you look at my generation, the millennial generation on down, the average time in the workplace is less than 5 years. And so everyone is looking for that culture of experience, that belonging. And so, you can resist all you want to, but you're going to find yourself with high turnover rates. And so, to your point, to be able to adapt is really based on generational demands. When the baby boomers and silent generation have nearly completely exited the workplace, right? And who has ascended into leadership roles is Generation X and millennials. And if they are creating these environments that are not conducive for learning, growth, and well-being, they're going to find themselves either unemployed or having very high volumes of turnover. So as a generation, there are specific attributes and demands that you all have the ability to establish, which are generational behaviors that workplaces will have to conform to. Otherwise, they're going to have a tough time keeping a workforce that has continuity.
And I would add that employers can prioritize that just by listening, right? It's not rocket science. As long as we employ you, we listen to you, this generation. What are your needs? What are your wants? It's going to be good for business, right? You are how we adapt. You are how we evolve. You are how we remain resilient. And so as long as we listen we have to look at you as our client, put you first. To an employer, their employee is also the client. So that's how organizations can prioritize well-being and mental health, by listening to their employees.
Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Latito, you and VP Logan both, when you say there's a term that's circulating called psychological safety. And it's important that here at Grambling State, we create a culture of psychological safety where it's okay to have discussions about well-being. Companies are looking beyond profits these days, and they're looking at metrics that capture how good do their employees feel, how are they behaving. When you have an employee who's focused on self-care, they have fewer sick days. They're at work more. They're more productive. So that can be the same for our classrooms. Our students can come to class when they practice self-care, when they're doing things that help them be better persons, better individuals as a whole. So that's why I think creating this culture where we are not ashamed of mental health, but yet are embracing the importance of it, we all become better.
I love that. So this concludes A Candid Conversation, The Future of Work, Session 3, with Ms. Latito Hutchinson, Mr. Brandon Logan, and Mr. Derek Warren. Thank you.